is Jerald Hoover coming from you from So Booking Cool with Jewel B. Way to go, Miss B. Keep doing your thing.
Welcome to So Booking Cool. I'm Jewel B, and I'm giving a very warm welcome to today's multi-talented guest. He is a professor, award-winning author, respected sports journalist, playwright, speaker, and the editor-in-chief and senior writer of Pure Sports New York. His critically acclaimed series, My Friend, My Hero, is celebrating 25 years. He is Jerald L. Hoover. Professor Hoover, thank you so much for coming to So Booking Cool. And being that it is the 25th anniversary of My Friend, My Hero, how does that feel?
Well, it makes me feel old, but no, it makes me feel, I would say weird, but weird in a good way. Because, you know, when you are doing things where I'm doing it in terms of the struggle of trying to get published, going through 9 years of constant rejection and countless rewrites. I think it was like 60, and the first 9 drafts were written by hand because I didn't have a typewriter. I said typewriter, not computer. And to see that it's 25 years in print now, after I think it was 6 publications. Well, this is the 6th. It feels weird, but it's a good weird. And like I said, being that I've been in the struggle so much to try to get the book out and to do things that I was doing with it, it didn't even come to my attention until I hired a woman by the name of Eartha Watts, and she's going to be doing my press release. And she had mentioned to me, asked me when was the first year that it was copywritten and stuff like that. She said, this is 25 years, over 25 years basically. And she said, why don't you put that on the book? I'm like, I never thought of that. I never thought about putting 25-year anniversary edition on the book. And when she told me that, a light went off. And so I'm celebrating that, and I'm trying to put it on every platform that I can to get it out there.
That sounds like such a publicist move by her. That's a great idea, it sounds like. So what does My Friend, My Hero mean to you?
It means everything because I'm 52 years old, proudly, and this book, this subject, this whole story has been in my life literally for over 35 years. So more than half my life, My Friend, My Hero, the character Bennett Wilson, Kirby Maxwell, and all of them, the Tara. I mean, I feel like I know them personally, even though it is a work of fiction. But it's been in my life so long, and because the premise of the book would help save a life, enhance a life, and even mine included. Because, like I said, I was 17 years old when I wrote it, so I was going through my own struggles as a teenager, adolescent, young man, and so it means everything. And that book has blessed me to do so many different things that I couldn't even put into words in terms of the doors that has opened for me from reading and writing, and that is one reason why I champion the cause of being able to read and write, especially for young men and women of color. If you have the ability to read and write, and I'm talking about properly, you can get a job anywhere.
That's powerful. When you were writing My Friend, My Hero at 17 years old, was it therapeutic at all, or what were some of the challenges of putting some of your real life experiences like onto paper? And I know that it is also based in your hometown of Mount Vernon, right?
Correct. The challenges was to make sure I didn't step on toes, but that was a small count because my main concern was to get Bennett's message out, the character. He said some powerful things. Well, certain things were done within the storyline. Give example, it was primarily done off of a speech that I wrote. I wrote a speech, and this is how the story actually started. I wrote a speech by hand, of course, and the speech was therapeutic, to answer your question, for me, but it was also something that I was trying to push out to other men or young women that would be going through certain challenges. My dad was a drug addict and alcoholic, and a single parent household. I lived in the projects. My dad was also in jail a few times, and so I had a lot of stuff going on with me personally, and then me being a boy growing up. Me and my mom, it was a challenge sometimes. I wasn't a bad kid, but I was a boy, and she was a woman. So where I probably needed a father figure in my life, in the household, I didn't have one. So I was prone to do silly things. And so the therapy came from, again, writing this speech and then having the epiphany of putting the characters behind the speech. And so what initially would have been an anti-drug book, so to speak, turned out to be a life-enhancing book for all, basically in all platforms, because what the book deals with is peer pressure, it deals with making choices, it deals with education, it deals with so many different things that, you wouldn't think about, and for that to come from a 17-year-old at the time, and then 18, to come to myself at 18 was remarkable for me, and that it really served as a major piece of therapy for me.
Wow. And it's fantastic that it's been celebrating 25 years, and yet it's still extremely timely. Like, how do you say, Professor Hoover, that My Friend, My Hero is so timely for the generation now and the generation that will be coming up?
It's funny you said that the word timely. Very funny you said that. And the reason why I say that is because my very first rejection out of the 43, one of the first things they said was, "Thank you for your book, your manuscript. It was thought-provoking, timely, and, powerful." I mean, I got all types of accolades. But the one thing they were always, that last left, I always say that last paragraph, that third paragraph, when they said, "however, therefore," or "unfortunately," comma, I knew it was a rejection. I knew it was rejection. It was weird because it was saying timely back then. And then a friend of mine told me not too long ago, he was like, "Hey, Hoove, your book is even more timely now than it was back then because of the messages that it contained." So it goes to show you that when it's a period piece, if there are certain elements that are relevant to people's lives or enhance people's lives, you're always going to find something from it. Give you another example, and I'm not in any way putting my book on this platform, on this level, but you look at the Bible. The Bible was last written 2,000 years ago, right? But the relevance of it is still here. You know what I mean? It's still, over 6,000-7,000 years ago, a lot of relevancy is still in existence now, especially if you read the book of Proverbs. It's like, wow, it's like, except for the internet, everything is basically happening today as well. So I had to say that I was blessed, I had to say by the hand of God, to write the way I wrote it and to go through everything that I went through so that I would have a viable testimony. And because now, of course, when I wrote the book, I wanted to be on Oprah the next year. I kid you not. When I started in 1983, I was looking forward to being on Oprah or other talk shows in 1984, 85, okay? It didn't happen like that. It took 9 years to get the book published. And one of the things that was happening in the rejection letters was I kept seeing the same statement. It's not right for our list. It's not right for our list. It's not right for our list. And I'm saying, what is this list they're talking about? Okay? Now, we didn't have internet, so I couldn't have Googled anything about a list. But what was underneath it all, Jewel, was that they were saying that they didn't think black people would read the book. Now, mind you, the book is not written just for black people. It was written for everybody who has eyes. It's just that it came from a black man sharing a black experience, in terms because I'm black. So, but it's not written just for black people. And so that insulted me in a lot of ways, but it also galvanized me to change the scope of how I want to market my book.
Interesting. So what were some ideas that you had about marketing the book after, getting that type of criticism or feedback?
It's funny, okay, what I did was, and trying to find out where this list was, this mythical list, I never forget, I took 2 Saturdays in a row. I lived in Mount Vernon at the time, and so I took a bus. It was about an hour ride from Mount Vernon to White Plains. And I went to a bookstore called B. Dalton. Of course, they're since not in existence anymore, but I went into the bookstore, and I basically spent several hours I literally spent several hours in the bookstore walking around. I should have been hired as a security guard for that day, for those 2 days I did, but I wanted to see what was in the young adult section. And I saw a lot of Nancy Drew. I saw a lot of S.C. Hinton. I saw a lot of highlights. I saw a lot of other things, but I only saw one book with my colored face on it. and that was a book by the late great Ossie Davis. And the book, I still remember the name of the book. It was called Just Like Martin, because I ended up picking up the shelf and taking it, buying it. And so I'm like, okay, they don't think blacks will read, or they don't think blacks will come to the bookstore. Now, what I did do while I was there, I was trying to see what kind of traffic was coming to the bookstore. Now, I didn't see, young white boys coming to the bookstore either buying books. As a matter of fact, I didn't see anybody coming to buy a book without a parent. And I believe by the time I was there, I remember seeing a few young white girls with their mothers buying books. But it wasn't like a lot of traffic coming in and out of there. So my thought was, wait, okay, they don't think young people buy books. But now I'm thinking, okay, where are young kids normally? Where could you find a book of young kids? Well, ding, 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 schools, ding, 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 churches, ding, 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 local YMCAs, boys clubs, other community-based organizations known as CBOs. So what I did was I had the idea, and my mother to this day swears that I started this trend. I said, well, I'm going to put essay questions and topics of discussion at the end of the book, meaning if I get into, when a book finally gets published, I will give it to a school and see how they can use it as book reports and things of that nature. So schools became my main target, and I've been blessed to do that ever since.
That is so smart. That is brilliant. What was the reaction that you were getting from these schools when you created these questions?
Sure. I finally got a publisher. Okay, he promised to print up 1,000 copies if I can guarantee 500 sales. Now, between me growing up in the projects, we had 5 buildings in my area, and each building had 100 units, 100 tenants, 100 apartments in it. I go to a big church called the United House of Prayer, and we're all over the country. I have a pretty big family, and I'm like, okay, sure, I can get you 500 sales. I can at least get you that. So I came up with invoice, and I made all this stuff up on my own. God blessed me with the ideas and put together. And I finally got the publishing aspect of it. So my marketing thing was in vogue. The first school I went to was Eastern High School in Washington, D.C., and I got that through a connection by the name of Miss Braxton. She was a teacher there. She went to my church in Washington, D.C., and she had the students buy books. All right, and that they charged $10. The students bought the books, and she had to buy the books. So when I got there, the books were paid for, and they wrote book reports. And I kid you not, Jewel, every single she taught 10th grade. Every single young person that read that book was flabbergasted by. I mean, they were astonished that they read such a book that was so good. I got stuff like, I don't read books that often, but I couldn't put your book down. They wrote this in the letters too. I mean, and then when I got there, you would have thought I was a rock star. So that's going to show me, if you give young people something that they can relate to, they'll read it. They'll read it, and they'll read it, and they'll want to read it some more. And this was, believe it or not, in 1993. So this was several years ago. And the reaction has been the same ever since. I get young men and young women, or I even get parents that will tell me, my child doesn't like read books, but they couldn't put your book down. And matter of fact, may I tell you a quick story of a parent?
Of course.
I had a parent, and I wish I find her one day, or she finds me, or we connect again. But she told me, I was at an event. She said, Mr. Hoover, thank you for your book. And I said, you're welcome. She said, my son read your book. I said, thank you. She said, no, you don't understand. My son doesn't like reading books. So I said, okay, I'm interested now. She says, one night, it was about 9:30. It was time for my son to go to bed. I guess he might have been in 7th grade. And she says, well, Johnny, go to bed. And he's like, well, Ma, I want to read. I want to finish reading the book. Or let me read one more chapter or whatever. And she was like, no, it's time to go to bed. And now what she was conflicted with was the fact that her son didn't like to read books a lot. But the fact that he had so much interest in my book, she was like, okay, I'll give you 15 more minutes. So she said, okay, by 9:45, whatever, I want the lights out and you be in the bed. So she goes off to, do her thing, and she figured she would go check on her son about, say, 10:15, give him, after he should be sound asleep by now. Mm-hmm. So she looks in his room, and she said the lights are out, but she wanted to go, just go check on him, see how he was, how he was sleeping. She goes into the room, and this young man has a blanket over his head with a flashlight reading a book. I couldn't believe what I heard. And, I was like, wow. And like I said, I was at an event, so I couldn't, I didn't make time to get a number or to get the young man's number or whatever to talk to him a little bit about it. But and to this day, I never forgot it. And this was about 15 years ago. So it was several years ago, but I never forgot that. For a young man to have a flashlight in his room, with the blankets over him, reading the book, I was like, okay. And that gave me even more fuel to say, keep writing this book. Keep pushing this book, and keep writing books along these lines, because there are people out there that need it and will be benefited by it. They just have to be exposed to it to know where to find it, or you got to get it to them.
That's right. I'm so glad that you kept on and you didn't let those rejections stop you, because you knew that you had something that was more than worthy of being published. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, no question. I had so many people that read the book, in the draft stage, they talked about how good it was. I even had people tell me you should give this book to Spike and all that kind of stuff. People just looked at it as being movie worthy and this, that, and the third. So I knew I had a good piece. And then there's something that's inside you when you're either creating something or you're doing something, or even, let's say, it could be an outfit that you're wearing. That it's something that has that it factor to it. You just feel it. It's something that's in you that that this is something that's ordained, that's anointed, or it's called on. You just have that feeling of what you have at that moment is something that's either needed, powerful, or influential. You feel it, and that was how I felt. That's why I never was daunted by the rejection letters. But what I did do, and I told some people not too long ago, I wish I would have kept the rejection letters for now. Now, had I known things, hindsight 2020, I would have kept them. But at that moment when it came, it was negative, and it was a crushing blow. Because I'm sending the book out hoping that I would get a yes, and I didn't get it. So what I would do is I would just tear the letters up, and I would just put them in the incinerator. Especially for when I was living in the projects, I just tear them up, put them in the incinerator, let it burn. I never kept them because I didn't want that energy in near me, and so I thought that enough of myself not to have that around me. But and then I never thought that, well, when I get it published, I'm going to lick my tongue or stick my tongue out at the publishers and the editors that rejected me. I just say, well, they didn't like it at the time. They made me stronger, and so it really put me at a place where I can teach writing. I learned how to be a marketer. I learned how to be a motivational speaker. And thank you, Miss Nikki Giovanni, for saying your words to me that you did when I met you at Norfolk State. But it taught me so much about becoming a man. So My Friend, My Hero again. And when I said it was sort of like everything to me, it really is.
And My Friend, My Hero, it's also a book series.
Yes, it's I call it the Hero Book Series, and because it's four books, and each book has the word hero in them. And it's My Friend, My Hero. He was my hero too, which is TOO. A hopeful hero, and the last one is Hoop Hero. And the reason why I put all four titles with the word hero in them, because so many times young men and young women, people in general, see heroes that people on television, athletes, entertainers, rappers, just for everybody that they see on television could be a hero to them. But sometimes the hero is right in front of you. And sometimes, more often than not, the hero is right in the mirror. You just have to look in the mirror and see yourself as one. Because as a good book says, as a man thinketh, so is he. And if you think of yourself as a good for nothing and low life or nobody or no one loves me, this and the third, unfortunately, and if you say it to yourself more often, too often, and you start to believe yourself, then you'll act accordingly. And other people will see you that way. But now, if you can look in the mirror and see yourself as a hero, as a somebody, as a person of substance, a person of means and different things of that nature, despite your circumstances, then chances are you'll win for that, because that confidence will breed a certain type of action and reaction, and then before you know it, you're at a point where you can help others because you've been successful.
So when can people expect the next in the series? Do you have a timeline in mind yet?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm dropping. Well, the first 3 are done; they're finished. But because we're rebranding book 1, I'm going to let this recirculate around about. And what's beautiful is that the publishing arm that I use now has worldwide distribution. And even unbeknownst to myself, I did some research, and I saw that my book is, sold on Amazon. It's sold Barnes & Noble. It's sold on Books A Million, which I think is BAM. It's sold in IndieBound. It's about 6 different places that the books are sold. And so once, I do some, marketing and do some exposure stuff and getting it out a little bit, I'm going to drop book 2. And I'll probably say maybe around Christmas time, somewhere around there. And then, because book 2 is ready, and then I'm going to, drop book 3 after that, and hopefully book 4 will be done by May, and all 4 books will be out and about, and people will hopefully, prayerfully, see my series as their favorite series that they've ever read.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, they have to. Did you handwrite these editions as well, or no, right? It's easier.
No, but what I do is, because I'm old school, when I'm doing my drawing board type stuff, storyboard stuff, when I'm getting things together, I always do it by hand. So what I do is, even when I teach people, I tell them this, because the research shows that, for one, when you write things by hand, you memorize it better, as opposed to just typing it on a computer, or you use a dictation device and speak it into into typing. But when I write, I become more intimate into my story. So what I do is I buy a notebook, and I probably have about 20 notebooks in my house right now. I think I drive my wife crazy with that because I have notebooks all over the place. But I number a piece of paper from, I number my notepad, the first several sheets, from 1 to like 200 or 250, and then I'll take a few weeks and just write down ideas, and I don't do it in order. I just write down the ideas, whatever comes to my mind, I write it out in a sentence, and then it's something. It might not be a full sentence, but it's something that I know what it is. So it could be 3 words, 2 words, or what have you. But I write it down. I take my time. If I do maybe 15 lines, and then I run out, I stop. Then I let my brain rest and what have you. Then I come back to it and do 15 more, what have you. So what I do is I just take some time to allow my creative, juices to get galvanized and to flush things out on paper. Then I go in and break it down by chapters, how I want to see things. And then once I do that, then the typing begins. I can go to the computer and type things out. But it's not before I take a lot of time to, write things up by hand and, discover myself a little bit and put things out there.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever gotten any urges to write something when you're out and about or working?
Are you kidding me? That's when it comes. Yeah, I never forget when I was living upstate at the time. When I was still working with My Friend, My Hero, I used to have the recording device with me, because when I was driving, especially when I'm in the car driving by myself and I got the radio on, I'm listening to soft jazz or sometimes even nothing. The ideas would just flood in my mind. Now, we didn't have cell phones back then, so I had to have a tape recorder. And there were times when, the reason I had to do that, because before I used a tape recorder device, I would get to the point where the thoughts would come to me so impactful. A few times I had to pull over on the shoulder to write something down just to get it out of my head, because the ideas were coming to me so strong and so powerful, so that I had to literally take a notepad out and just write it. So it got to a point to where I had to bring a notepad with me in the car when I was by myself, because the ideas would just flood. There were times when at work I would have to, take lunch by myself and just walk, and just walk, because the ideas would come to me so vividly and so, so powerful. And so, yeah, to answer your question, yes. Once the juices start flowing, there's another thing. When I try to teach people how to write books and things, the creative process. I say respect the creative process. Don't rush it. Don't try to write a book in one day. Because one of the things I tell them, I said, if you wrote a book in one day, I said, I will promise you, you will regret it. In the sense that you write it in one day, but in 2 weeks after it's published, if you read it over again, you would see so many things that you want to change, add to, and all kinds of stuff that you really would regret it. Thankfully, certain publishing companies now, especially the ones that are print on demand, allows you to make changes. You can do certain things with that. But back in the day when it was just a print, a 5,000 run or whatever they did, if you had, if your book was written in one day and 5,000 books went out, that's what's going to be out in the atmosphere. So you got to wait until those books are bought and sold or whatever before you're able to do something else. So if you're really being serious about writing a book, take your time. I'm not saying it has to take 9 years, but take your time and allow the creative process to have its way, and then you go about writing and you'll be better for it.
How did you come to find CreateSpace Independent Publishing, and what is your advice for any author who is looking for the right match in terms of a publisher for their book?
Just before you put it out in print, respect the fact that other people will read your work, okay? And what I mean by that is that, and you can find people, I mean, they can contact me, I can give them who to go to. You find a good editor that knows what they're doing, okay, in the writing process. Allow them to edit your work. Then usually an editor knows a good proofreader. They can contact, like the people that I have on my team. One's an editor, the other one's a proofreader, okay? And they both stay in their particular lane and do great work for me. So one edits, and then it's turned over to the proofreader. But and believe it or not, Jewel, it's not a lot of money. I mean, back in the days, it probably would have been $1 a piece. Now you can get them for, not for free, but you won't be paying as much as you think you'll pay. So spend the extra money for an editor. Spend the extra money for a proofreader. This way, if you have a good story, and if it's edited and proofread the right way, then I say that this is what I use. Then your story will pop. It will pop because the words will come off the words will fly off the page. If it's a good book, the words will fly off the page because if it's done the right way, the cover won't be able to contain it. Mm-hmm. And that is what you want. You want to be so the story is so powerful, the cover itself cannot contain it. But you do that by respecting, like I said, the editing process, the proofreading process, just the whole thing. So in other words, even though you may do it as an independent publisher, if you would, going to CreateSpace, you still don't want to just put anything out there because other people will read your work.
Yeah. So I know you mentioned the Ozzy and by the way, I know I can't keep you too long, so I have a few more questions. So you mentioned the Ozzy Davis book, in that bookstore that you went to when you were like just studying their shelves and everything. Is there any book, or was it that book that did inspire you as a child, or just did you have a favorite author?
I think my favorite author probably would have been S.E. Hinton, because she wrote, The Outsiders and Rubblefish, and she had a series of books. But even though my book wasn't a series then, but she might have been my favorite. But actually, as a child, but my favorite author became actually Alex Haley, because he wrote Malcolm X. But the book Roots, which became a mega television show, because it took him 13 years, I believe it was, 12 or 13 years for him to do it, I started to respect that because it took so long for my book to get published that, I mean, I didn't meet him, but I respected him and for what he had to do so long and how he went about it. So I think he became my all-time favorite. And then when I read Malcolm X, I really was inspired, by what was written. And funny, Ozzy Davis, a quick story about him. When everybody was telling me about giving the book to Spike and all that kind of stuff, and I'm like, well, I like Spike. I've met him. Me being a sports writer for the Knicks, I got a chance to meet him a few times, and I'm not saying we're friends, but we met, and so. I'm like, well, he puts a lot of family and a lot of stuff in his work, and so I'm not gonna go to him and then tell him don't put curses in the book, in your movie. So I went and took a screenwriting course and at Frederick Douglass Institute on 96th Street and off Broadway back in the day. So I took that, and then I had some other people help me. So I changed the book. I adapted the book into a screenplay myself, and I had Ozzy read it because I wanted Ozzy to direct it and be a part of it. And he sent me, because I knew somebody who knew Ozzy Davis, so I kind of met him that way. I only had one part for Ozzy. It was a cameo, but he read the entire piece and wrote me the most inspiring letter, that I could have. I'm framing it. Because what he wrote me, he's gone now, but it was amazing.
Wow.
And then when he passed away, his funeral was at Riverside Church. I'm gonna tell you how things work. His funeral was at Riverside Church. I couldn't get inside because it was so crowded. It was a congregation of people outside, and I was upset because usually when something like that happens, I find my way inside. But this time I said, well, no, let me just not fight my way through it. I'll stay back and do what I have to do and be among other folks that were there celebrating his life. And wouldn't you know it, 10 wins out of all the people that was outside came to me for a quote. And they played it for 24 hours, because after he died, 10 Wins had it on, so that we could sound bites. So I kept it on 10 Wins. So it's like every 5 minutes or whatever it was, I kept hearing my sound bite. And I'm like, wow, God bless me to meet Ozzy, even in death. You know what I mean? And so this worked out. I said, yes, okay, thank you, Ozzy. That was really cool. Out of all the people that came, all the people that was lined up behind the barricade, 10 Wins came right to me. Bam, put a microphone on my face. I said, wow, okay. and they played it, so.
And you were also a sports journalist, right? At the time?
Yeah. Yep. I'm a sports journalist. A person by the name of Cliff Benton discovered me as a sports writer and had me meet a man by the name of Roland Rogers. And that was in 1998, I believe it was. And so my first assignment was Michael Jordan's comeback with the Washington Wizards. And from then, I've been a sports writer for the last 20 years.
Wow. Did this Cliff Benton also write the foreword?
Yeah, he was the foreword to my third book.
Book?
It was the introduction.
The introduction. Got it.
The introduction. So I told him, let it go. And just, it's a pretty powerful introduction. Very powerful introduction.
So, Professor Hoover, I know we mentioned Barnes & Noble and Amazon, but again, how can people because listeners, if you have not been convinced, like clearly My Friend, My Hero and the Hero book series is something that you definitely need to check out. Just alone, you can hear how inspiring the journey to making this book was. And yeah, so how can people keep up with you, Professor Hoover, and get the book?
Sure. I have a website that will be up probably this time next week. I might be at the door to say click, go live, and the website is called theherobookseries.com. So the website is theherobookseries.com. But I can also be found on Twitter. I have two accounts: Jerald Hoover, JeraldHoover, and it's Hoover Books Sports. And also, I have a new Twitter account called The Hero Book Series. All right, so they can find me there. I'm on Facebook, Jerald Hoover. I'm getting a YouTube channel very soon too. But right now, you can find me through social media, and I answer all inquiries. And I'd love to hear from you.
Hey, there you have it. Any final thoughts? Anything we didn't miss?
No. My endeavor is to reach everyone, but out of everyone that I reach, I want at least 1 million young men to be able to read the book. I know females will read it because females read a lot more so than men. As I've seen, I won't say I've seen. I'm not going to say I've seen it statistically, but I've seen. On the subway, I see more females with a book in their hand than men or a device. But I really want at least 1 million young men to read the book because I think if they read it, it will shape their way they're thinking to be more positive and proactive. And And I really believe that that will help our America going forward.
Thank you so much for talking to So Booking Cool, and you'll definitely have to come on again.
No question. When book 2 comes out, let's do it again.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And thank you to all the listeners, and until next time, So Booking Cool.